Social media is many things to many people. It has become one of these catch-all phrases for anything that's done online that involves a bit of two-way engagement, from blogs straight up to YouTube videos to tweets to Facebook and so on. Skype communications, some believe, are social media. And while that may be a stretch, it's going to be a good idea to have a look at what is actually social media and who is using it. And let's have a quick overview with an idea of that. And if you're being a purist about it, many people say that social media is this term for what's shared online. But a better idea might be to consider social media is where people engage online and engage with each other. They don't necessarily engage with a brand. If you go onto Facebook, they can engage with a brand, but they're always engaging with a person behind the brand, and similarly on other platforms. And with this, there's this emphasis that you're not necessarily engaging with a piece of software or an application that's hosted on one computer. For example, a computer at McDonald's or White and Mackay or Iron Brews factories or so on. It's something out there in what's known as the cloud. And this is quite a considerable change from when it used to be that everything was done on your own machine and done locally. We're way beyond that now with the cloud. And to show how ubiquitous social media now is, this gives an excuse for a pretty picture. This shows us Western Europe and Britain and a little bit of Africa, and the lights are very simply Twitter exchanges and also sharing of pictures on Flickr. And the brighter the light, the more activity there is, and you'll be able to see, obviously and unsurprisingly, that the most activity is concentrated in large cities or regional hubs. But even away from that, there's some activity in most places now, and it just shows that truly we are in an age of a world wide web, of a global audience, and more importantly, a global community. And if we're saying there that everyone's using it, let's back that up with some nice statistics. And it shows here, for example, that in March 2011, the Netherlands was just ahead of the United Kingdom in hours spent online. But the point being that as you look down there, everyone's spending a lot of social time online. Now, whether that's time they used to do for reading books, or whether time watching TV, or doing something else, or perhaps even it was just time spent staring into space as they sat on a bus or a train, we don't know. But the point being is that online is now a huge consumer of time for an individual. And obviously there are people going online to look for fresh content, fresh updates from their friends, fresh information from brands, to get news, to get information, to be entertained. And again, this just shows the breakdown of Twitter and LinkedIn. And again, for people who say, oh no, all of this is a fad, no, I think we're long past the idea that anything involving the internet, whether it be on desktops or mobiles, is a fad. There are farmers in India who use their mobile phones to get information to them about crops and about prices in a timely fashion. It's used across the globe for so many things. We're past this idea of, oh, no one's going to sit and look at a computer for all day long, or no one's going to sit and look at a mobile phone screen all day long. We're very, very beyond that. People now go on a holiday and you share your friends' holidays in real time with them. You see their pictures that they post on Facebook within minutes of taking them, regardless of them being on the other side of the world. People tell you what they think of the hotel they're at. You read their check-ins to see where they're dining out that night. People are so much more connected because of all of this, and it's this idea of connection is not going away. And obviously there's a lot there for brands to try and capitalize on. So to come back to this idea of what is social media, regardless of name of platform, whether it be a Vimeo, LinkedIn, Facebook, it's places where you can share thoughts, ideas, knowledge, experience, analysis. And it is very much a sharing, because you put your opinion out there and some people might agree, some people might disagree. And it's not just about doing it through words. You can do it with text, yes, but you can also do video, audio, images. There's platforms for all of these things. And for the individual, they're very often free, but that doesn't mean it's free to do, because there's always a time investment, whether it be in taking pictures or writing words. And Why is this going on? Because it's fun. It's been made enjoyable. Even in the days gone by of bulletin boards, it may have been more technical to get online, but it was enjoyable then. It's been enjoyable through email lists and forums, and it's enjoyable for people now. And this is why it's popular. People do like to share. Now, you may not find what someone in Kansas thinks is particularly relevant, but it may be of interest to their friends and to their close family. So people like to share. As a species, it's one of the reasons we've done so well, and online we get to share what we want as well, for good and for bad, unfortunately. But from a brand point of view, what can social media actually bring to the table, so to speak? And surveys have shown that it can do a lot. It can be used for crisis PR to respond quickly. It can increase brand awareness. It can increase traffic. It can improve your search engine rankings. It can increase lead generation, reduce customer support costs. In truth, it can do a lot of things depending on the time, effort and energy you want to put into it. And it can be all of these things that you see on the screen, or it can be none of them. The question is what you want to do with it. And that's something to always bear in mind if you are embarking on a social media program. And there are many different types of it, as we've just mentioned. A basic breakdown is blogs are online diaries or online articles. Blogs can be written at length from 10 words to 10,000 words. And there's no natural limit. Someone can write as much as they want. They can embed pictures, video, audio. Blogs are very much the blank sheet of paper that you can do anything with. Microblogs like Twitter are small SMS sort of based formats. For example, Twitter's 140 characters. And it's very much like texting. Most people listening to this will have an idea of what Twitter is. After blogs and Facebook, it's the most popular sort of platform at the moment. Forums are more old school, but similarly still very, very popular, because they're where people can get together around similar topics of interest and discuss. You can share ideas, share thoughts, argue, have fun. They're great, in the days of the web being very text heavy, purely because of bandwidth restrictions. People, use text forums quite a lot, and to this day they're still very, very popular in many, many sectors. Video sharing and photo sharing, most commonly known by YouTube and Flickr, is just people sharing videos, commenting on videos and photos and saying what they think about them. An interesting stat for you is that now Facebook is more popular than Flickr for sharing pictures. And talking about Facebook, that brings us to what's seen as the pure, most popular social networking sites. Years ago it might have been Friends Reunited, then MySpace, Bebo. Now we talk about the likes of Facebook and LinkedIn, and these are sites that let you do quite a few things. You can share video, you can upload pictures, you can say what location you're at, you can just type in some text. You can do a lot. You're not limited to just one thing, and it's that variety that's helped keep them so popular. Another way, a slightly more crass way of looking at it, is to look at this slide and see how they work. And for example, Twitter is very often people saying what they're going to do. It's very active. They say, I need to pee. Now, Facebook very often is more passive, as people say what they've done or what's happened to them. In this case, I peed. Foursquare is all about location and saying where you are. So this is where I pee. Quora, that's a slightly faddish site, but it plays well for the purposes of this presentation. Why am I peeing? It's where people go to ask questions, and I doubt anyone would look at a YouTube video along those lines, but again, it shows what they're for. And LinkedIn is where you say what you're good at, so you would be good at that in this case. While it's slightly humorous, it does show slight differences in attitude between them all. For example, Facebook, as I say, you'd be telling someone what you've done or what's happened, while on LinkedIn you'd be saying I'm good at this. YouTube would be about the video and saying look at something I've done, whereas Twitter would be you explaining something very active, very now, very immediate. And obviously, moving away from peeing, it's having a change on us all, toilet habits notwithstanding, and this is giving brands an opportunity now to be their own communications, to be their own newspaper. they can be in control of the communications message. And from there, that means they can put all the information they want out, or as little information as they want out. There's no need for them to wait on anyone else. If the Herald or the Wall Street Journal or the Sun or any other newspaper only gives them 2 paragraphs, they no longer need to be happy with that. They can put as much information as they want on their own website and on other platforms to engage. And then when people see this, people can share it. If I see something about a brand I like, I'm going to tell my friends. In essence, I'm doing the work of the brand for them. I'm advertising it out there. I'm broadcasting it for them. And the downside to that, of course, is that if people aren't happy about brands, the brand can find out about that. Now, some people say that's a negative. Some people think it's a positive. Some people think that because they didn't know what people were saying in the pub before, it was all right for there to be criticism. That sort of head in the sand attitude of I can't hear it, so it doesn't affect me. Now you can see so much more of what people think about you and your brands. But I believe it's a positive. It's a good thing that you can see what people think. And also, it gives you a chance to find out about companies, whether it be to work for them, to invest in them, or just to work out whether or not you want to buy from them. And again, this can affect employees, clients, potential employees, stakeholders. There's a lot of people out there who have an interest or will broadcast what their interests are. And this means there's a lot more to do now if you're in the communications industry, but it's also a highly exciting time. And obviously, this has an impact on all of us. We're not so much just talking about the old theory that if you're watching an event, you're subtly influencing that event. If people are interested in your opinion, if everyone now thinks they're a journalist with an audience, obviously that affects the ego and what you think and what you think of the world and how the world sees you. It really reinforces the idea of you and the individual. Yet at the same time, it also reinforces the idea of the community, because without a community, your impact is negligible. And also, using mobile phones and so on now, this still transforms society in ways that we're still only, tapping into. For example, people will only take 8 steps away from their phone, but 22 steps away from their children. People with noisy children may take even further steps. But it's one of these things where, again, it's ubiquitous. People used to have a cigarette first thing in the morning before getting out of bed. Now people check their phones and for text messages or Facebook updates. It's just where we are. You can say it's a great thing, you can say it's a terrible thing, but to do either is actually to miss the point. It's here, it's not going away. So the question is how best to embrace it and how best to use it. And for businesses, there is a lot that can be done. It can be about research, seeing what your market wants, or seeing if there's new markets that you can go into. It's about talking to people about what they are using with your products. It's about finding people that can energize your sales. You can go out there and make it seem really dynamic. Americans are a lot better at this than British people, but that doesn't mean Brits can't be similarly enthusiastic and say, this is fantastic, this is great, this is something you really should be into. And similarly, at the tail end of this, there's also the idea of support. Instead of people having to come into your store or phone you to get some help and advice or discover new things about your product, they can learn it online. Similarly, you can bring all these customers together and have them work with each other online and save you having to do any work. They can be your brand ambassadors. They can be a strong part of your company. The joke about football teams is they can be the 12th man on the pitch. A German football team, very much, I think it was Bayern Munich, very recently made this point that social media, their fans online are very much as core a part of the team as the guys on the pitch. So think of it that way. And for any business, customers are essential. Without them, you'll go out of business. So if you can have this idea of bringing them into your company and making them a key part of what you do, then it's a fantastic and incredible opportunity. Of course, every opportunity has a threat. When it comes to researching online, there's a lot on there. You can find out what people are like, what people want to do. Having said that, the downside is that you need to work out what's good. And also, online, people may say they're an expert or they may say they're very knowledgeable, but they aren't necessarily. So you have to weigh these things up and spend a bit of time, doing your research. Just because it's online doesn't mean you can do it in 5 minutes and your job's done. For marketing and communications, there's huge opportunities here. It's ways of building up relationships with people to get them to buy your product. It's ways of helping people out who have a problem, perhaps not even necessarily with your product, but you may have spotted something where an area where your product can help. But again, there's downsides. You can't just go onto Facebook and say job done. You can't just put an update onto Facebook and say job done. You have to work at the engagement. You have to go to other pages on Facebook that you don't necessarily own. You have to mingle and engage with individuals and make sure that they know what you're about, that they can see your message, and you have to do this over and over, which of course is a time constraint as much as anything else. Sales have fantastic opportunities online because there's a global audience out there. 800 million people on Facebook alone, nearly 200 million on Twitter. These are huge audiences that people would love to reach out to. But you have to make sure that you're doing it in a good way, in an informative way. Think of it, for example, as when you're at a party. If you meet someone and say, hi, what do you do? And they just go to do this and then talk about themselves, for the next hour. You don't want to be standing next to that person. You're going to find them very boring if they just go me, 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 me. So you have to keep it fresh. Think about it in that terms when you're online. If you just say to people, buy this, buy this, buy this, buy this, the odds are it's not going to interest them. Tell them the story behind the product. Tell them why they should buy the product. Tell them what's good about the product. Show them what's good about the product. Just inform, educate, converse, and you'll reap the benefits. Similarly, for support, there's a great many examples about this now where people are fed up being put on hold or getting duff advice when they get put through to call centres, so they go online and people solve problems for them. Someone can go online and say, my printer's not working, and someone may come back and go, what printer is it you've got? And what computer is it hooked up to? What software is it running? And someone will give them the answers, and then they'll go, well, have you tried this? There seems to be a problem here. It's easily resolved. But people like to share, people like to inform, people like to help very often. So there's huge support networks out there. And again, if you are, say, working in some form of call center, or you have some sort of sales support line, if you have as much information as possible online, not only is that content that other departments can use to share, it also means that your time is freed up for when people do phone in with a genuine, unique emergency. And it means that person with that problem isn't waiting as long on the phone while you deal with the mundane and trivial issues. For developments as well, your company can grow online by seeing what's happening out there, what people are talking about, which way the tide's going. Is there anything your company can do? Can your company adapt? And again, this implies internally as much as externally. You can make people feel more involved by getting them out there to ask for ideas, or even just ask internally for ideas. There's an awful lot, but of course, bear in mind that anything you do put out there, anything you do digitally, even if it's for an intranet, can easily be cut and pasted and shared with others. And while that's the point of the exercise, you also have to bear in mind that your competitors will be online. You may even have enemies who are online, and you need to bear that in mind. But with a couple of negatives there, but that doesn't mean that it's a bad thing. There's a lot of good reasons for being online and using social media in a proactive and engaging sense. It can raise awareness of your brand. It can increase the number of websites linking to you. It can boost how you're found in search engines, increase sales, drive traffic to your website. These are all good things. These are all very positive factors that you would want to do. And it's about being creative. I mean, that may sound ridiculously oversimplistic, but at the heart of it, that's very true. You go into Facebook and Twitter, LinkedIn to see what's new, to see what the latest developments are, to see what people are saying or doing. So, you know, that's something that you have to bear in mind. And the way to always have something new and interesting is to be creative. So always think, you know, when something's said to you or you're given something in a company, think what you can do to make that more engaging or more interesting. Because if you find it boring or dull and you work for a company, you know, what chance is Joe or Joanne Punter going to have? They're not going to enjoy it either. So always try and keep things fresh, always try and keep them exciting, show that excitement where you can. In many ways, you can think of it as a story. You know, anything you put online, and this applies to individuals as well, is a story. It's the story of what you did. You know, a Facebook update is a story of what you're thinking, a story of what you did today. A tweet maybe the story of what you did, what you're going to do. Sorry, and it's almost like the Sky advert. You know, stories. We've all got stories, and that's very true. Everything you do, everything you say, every engagement you have, in essence, is a little story in its own. And you have to bear that in mind. And when doing this online, you know, make sure what your stories are relevant or interesting. Or if you're diverting from what people would expect, give them a reason to know why you're diverting from it. And again, it's just, you know, little things to think about as you develop into social media. But the beauty of all of this is that there is so much. I mean, if you even go back to the 90s, the very early 90s, you know, most press firms or communication firms or marketing firms just put out text. You know, if you were lucky, there was a couple of pictures as well. But now a one-man PR band can do text, can do audio, can do video, can do pictures. You know, can do so much. There's so much ways of getting information out there cheaply and getting it out. I mean, a Facebook page, you know, Twitter feed, these things cost nothing. To go and engage with people out there, to find the people to engage with, again, can be done for nothing apart from time. There's so much you can do, and there's so much vibrancy you can bring from any company that you work with. There's so much detail you can tell the world, and you know, to share it and to make it an adventure and to make it exciting. And of course, remember that all of this is two-way. You know, it's not just you going, we're doing this, or isn't it cool that we do this, or meet someone who's made this. It's about what people say to you and come back to you. That may be asking you a question about the product, maybe asking you something completely different. But as with all things, as with any relationship, you know, it's great when it's two-way. You know, people are giving you their thoughts and their opinions for nothing, and that's not something to lightly dismiss. Because if you think about it, you know, in days gone by, you would have spent fortunes to get marketing surveys done. Now you can get instant feedback on things, and people can tell you what they want. And obviously, remember, you have to be courteous and respectful to people for doing that with you.